Welcome back, dear friends. We would be discussing in detail now how do you calculate the boiler efficiency by indirect method. In the last lecture, I talked about the limitations of the direct method, and then we had an overview of what is the indirect method. So in the indirect method, there are certain losses which are happening which we need to compute. And we had listed those losses in our last lecture. We talked about a few losses, like that is the losses via the flue gases, because of hydrogen in the fuel, because of moisture in the fuel, moisture in the air supplied, incomplete combustion, and the surface losses. We included the fly ash losses and bottom ash losses, and we said that all these losses can be combined and we can arrive at the boiler efficiency by indirect method. Now, getting into more specific details, we would be discussing how these losses are actually measured and calculated. One of the important losses we talked about is L1 loss. Now, L1 is what? L1 is the loss due to the dry flue gases. It is a sensible loss, and how do you calculate that? For calculating that, we need to take certain measurements. What readings we should take is, for that we need to have an instrument called as flue gas analyzer. So using that flue gas analyzer, we can analyze the flue gases. By analysis, I mean we must know the composition of the flue gases, that is of oxygen in the flue gas or carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide in the flue gas. So either you require oxygen in the flue gas or you require carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide in the flue gases. So these readings we'll have to take for the flue gas analysis. Okay, and this would ultimately help us to calculate the heat lost via the dry flue gases. The second reading, as I said, would be the reading of the temperature of the flue gases. Now, temperature of the flue gases can be easily read. If you go and stand before the boiler, you will find that there are some temperature indicators. Those temperature indicators are basically giving you the indications shown by the thermocouples which are placed at different places. Okay, so we want to know the temperature which is recorded by the thermocouple of the flue gases, which is then read from the temperature indicator, and that helps us to arrive at the flue gas losses. Now, one more information we must have in order to calculate the heat lost by the dry flue gases as an auditor. We must do the analysis of the fuel sample. So we must take the fuel sample from the operator there, and we must do the rigorous analysis of the fuel sample. In fuel analysis, it is basically either the proximate analysis or ultimate analysis. Both how to do the proximate analysis or how to do the ultimate analysis, there are certain standards to it. Those standards are given by ASTM, American Society for Testing of Materials. So ASTM standards are generally followed for analysis of the fuel. Ultimate analysis of the fuel is more costly. Okay, it is more rigorous. Proximate analysis one can easily do in our own lab. Okay, and I will be sharing with you one relation wherein you can convert the proximate analysis to ultimate analysis. So by noting down the composition of the flue gases, by knowing the temperature of the flue gases, and by knowing the ultimate analysis of the fuel, one can calculate the heat lost via the dry flue gases. Now, how do you calculate the heat lost via the dry flue gases? It is a sensible heat loss, meaning that the flue gases which are let out from the boiler are at higher temperature. So that temperature we already know as the temperature of the flue gas minus the surrounding temperature, that is that temperature difference would be responsible for the heat loss. More is the mass of the flue gases generated, more would be the heat loss. More is the temperature of the flue gases, more would be the heat loss. Okay. Now, how do you calculate the mass of the flue gases generated? Mass of the flue gases generated is basically because of the mass of the fuel which is burned plus the mass of the air which is being supplied. Okay, so mass of the air which is being supplied, we need to calculate. Mass of the fuel which is burned has to be calculated, and that we have already discussed how to calculate the mass of the flue gases when we discuss the direct method. Okay, now the critical thing is how do you calculate the mass of the flue gases? So for that, one has to estimate the theoretical air supplied and one has to calculate the excess air supplied. And by knowing that, we can do the mass of the flue gases calculation. Okay, so I'll show you that relation later. But just note that for getting the heat loss via the dry flue gases, you must know the mass of the flue gases and you must know the temperature of the flue gases. I talked about the formula for converting the proximate analysis to ultimate analysis. So the percentage carbon over here is the ultimate analysis, percentage hydrogen over here is the ultimate analysis, percentage nitrogen over here is the ultimate analysis, and this you obtain by knowing the proximate analysis, that is C is the percentage of fixed carbon, A is the percentage of ash, M is the percentage of volatile matter, and M is the percentage of moisture. So by knowing this ash, volatile matter, moisture, and the fixed carbon, one can calculate the ultimate analysis. And as I said, proximate analysis can be easily done by using the ASTM standards. Okay. Once you get this analysis, ultimate analysis, okay, and once you figure out what is the percentage of excess air, you can calculate the mass of actual air supplied. Okay. Now, mass of actual air supplied, we need to understand the difference between the actual air and theoretical air. Actual air means we are supplying some air for combustion over and above the theoretical air. Okay, and that is necessary because the combustion phenomena is not ideal, and we can figure out the mass of actual air supplied by noting down the oxygen in the flue gases. Okay, you know the oxygen in the flue gases is an indicator of the actual air supplied. If there is more oxygen, it means that you are supplying more actual air. If you are supplying less oxygen, it would mean that you are supplying less actual air. Okay, so by knowing the mass of the theoretical air and by knowing the amount of the oxygen in the flue gases, you can calculate the mass of actual air supplied per kg of fuel. Okay, and then you can arrive at the mass of the flue gases per kg of fuel. So this is M. Specific heat of the flue gases can be measured. Temperature of the flue gases can be obtained from the thermocouple and the surrounding temperature you know. So this MCP delta T delta T into 100 upon GCV gives us the heat lost via the dry flue gases. Let me repeat. How do you calculate the heat loss via the dry flue gases? We must make use of this formula where M is the mass of the flue gases, and this M is calculated by knowing the actual air supply, okay, and by knowing the fuel supply. Fuel supplied you can measure by using the fuel meter. Actual air supplied you can measure by calculating the percentage excess air, and this has to do with flue gas analysis. Okay, by knowing the flue gas analysis, meaning by knowing the oxygen in the flue gases, you can calculate the actual air supplied. Okay, so this is about M. CP, specific heat of the flue gases, should be known. Temperature you can read from the thermocouple, and hence you can calculate this by formula MCP into delta T into 100 upon GCV. So this would be percentage of heat lost via the flue gases, okay, as compared to the energy in the fuel, energy which is supplied via the fuel. So that we had called as L1 percentage. Okay. Just as you calculate L1 percentage, we need to calculate L2 percentage and so on. L2 is what? L2 is because of the water which is present in the hydrogen which is present in the fuel. Now this formula you will have to remember. I'll just tell you the logic of the formula. This 9H into 584 plus Cp Tf minus Ta. This has to be read as minus. Okay. So temperature of the flue gases you have read, ambient temperature you know, specific heat of the flue gases you know. This 584 is the latent heat of evaporation. Okay, and that is in kilocalories per kg. Okay, this you can convert it into SI units also. Uh, this formula I have written because in most of the industries doing audit, they use MKS units, but that is not an issue. You can always convert this 584 to SI units by multiplying it with 4.187, and this CP also you can convert it into kilojoules per kg kilojoule. Okay, so you must know, for reading this, you must know the hydrogen which is present in the fuel. Okay, and you must know the temperature of the flue gases. How do you know the hydrogen in the fuel? Hydrogen in the fuel is known from the ultimate analysis. So that is why I said that you must have the ultimate analysis of the fuel with you. That sample analysis has to be with you in order to calculate the losses in the boiler. So heat loss because of evaporation of water formed, okay, because of the presence of hydrogen in the fuel is calculated by this formula 9H into 584 plus P delta T whole upon GCB. So this we can call it as L2 percentage. Okay. Then there is a loss, as I told you, because of moisture which is present in the fuel. So the moisture which is present in the fuel also can be obtained from the analysis of the fuel. That can easily be obtained from the analysis of the fuel. This I had already explained you that this is the latent heat of evaporation. This is a specific heat of the steam because the moisture gets converted to steam. Okay, this is Cp of steam. This is latent heat of water vapor. Okay, latent heat of water vapor, and this is the gross calorific value of the fuel. So yum, that is what we require is the moisture contained in the fuel that obtained from the fuel analysis, and temperature of the flue gases that will help you calculate the heat loss due to moisture present in the fuel. Okay. Then there is a heat loss because of moisture which is present in the supplied air. For that, we need to know the specific humidity, also known as humidity factor. So specific humidity, if you want to read, we need to use an instrument called a psychrometer. So psychrometer would help to calculate the dry bulb temperature and wet bulb temperature. And using the dry bulb temperature and wet bulb temperature, you can read the specific humidity of the air which is present in the conditions where the boiler is located. Okay, so humidity factor can easily be obtained by knowing the air properties. Then actually air supplied we had already calculated by knowing the percentage excess air, and we would know the temperature of the flue gases. Here again we must know the specific heat of the superheated steam. This formula can be used for SI units as well as MKH units. If it is in MKH units, this Cp has to be in kilocalories per kg. If it is in SI units, this has to be taken in kilojoules per kg Kelvin. Okay. So what readings are required for calculating heat loss due to moisture present in the air? You will require only the temperature of the flue gases, and you must have already calculated from the percentage excess air reading the actual air supplied per kg of the fuel. Okay. Then I mentioned about the heat loss because of incomplete combustion. So for this formula is to be used. You must know the volume of CO in the flue gases. Okay, this volume of CO in the flue gases can be obtained by using the flue gas analysis, by using the flue gas analyzer. Then you must have known the volume of carbon dioxide which is present in the flue gases. This again is obtained from the flue gas analysis using the flue gas analyzer. So you see how important the flue gas analyzer is. It gives you the CO, it gives you the CO2, and then how important the fuel analysis is, because that gives you the carbon content per kg of fuel. So knowing this C is the carbon content per kg of fuel. Knowing the percentage CO and percentage CO2 in the flue gases, you can calculate what is the heat loss because of partial conversion of CO to CO, partial conversion of carbon to carbon monoxide. Okay, if there was complete conversion of carbon to carbon dioxide, this losses would not be there. Okay, so this is to be understood. This formula again is written in MKS unit. For getting this formula in SI units, we'll have to again multiply this with 4.187. So we have discussed many losses. Now the surface losses, generally we use thumb rules for knowing the surface losses. This is not a very interesting slide, but the thumb rules could be of interest to you. If it is a packaged boiler or fire tube boiler, we generally take the surface unaccounted for losses in the range of 1.5% to 2.5%. If it is a water tube boiler used in the industry for process heating, then we take it as 2% to 3% as the heat loss. And if it is a high capacity boiler like in power plants, then we keep that surface losses as smaller value less than 1%. Okay. So this way we have had calculated all the losses, and then these losses, if you add them, okay, would give you the percentage heat lost minus 100 minus that would give you the boiler efficiency. I had not discussed the heat losses via the fly ash and bottom ash, but that is also very easy. For that, we must do the analysis of the fly ash, calculate its calorific value, and we must know the mass of the flue gas, the mass of the fly ash formed. Okay, so mass of the fly ash in the and mass of the bottom ash into the calorific value would give you this L7 and L8. All other losses I had already discussed. For calculating the heat lost via the flue gases, dry flue gases, I told you that you must know the ultimate analysis of the fuel and you must have done the flue gas analysis. Similarly, we talked about the losses because of hydrogen which gets formed to water vapor. We talked about the moisture in the fuel. We talked about the moisture in the air which is supplied. So you see that very few readings are required here also. But most important reading is we must have the flue gas analyzer with us and you must have done the ultimate analysis of the fuel sample. Okay, that helps us to calculate the boiler efficiency by indirect method. I hope this is very clear to you and you would be in a position to practically do this sort of analysis when you go to the industry and see a boiler. Okay, so thank you very much. Bye for now.